Hello and welcome to Narayana IAS. I am Pratik, your faculty for Daily News Analysis. Now students, in today's session, we shall be focusing on 5 most important topics from the Hindu and the Indian Express. So let's have a quick brief about the topics that we shall be discussing in today's session. The first article is taken from Hindu, page number 11. Now in this article, we are going to understand about the sporting culture in our country, the systemic issues in the sporting ecosystem of our country. The second article we have taken from Indian Express, page number 8. Now in this article we are going to understand about the instability in India's neighborhood, that is Myanmar. The third article we have taken from Hindu, page number 1. Now in this article we are going to understand about the PM Kusum scheme, which is going to revolutionize the agriculture sector by integrating solar energy. The fourth article we have taken from Hindu, page number 1. Now in this article we are going to understand the government of India's recently launched artificial intelligence based national pest surveillance system. The last article we have taken from Indian Express, page number 11. Now in this article we'll understand how India will emerge as a global player or leader in semiconductor manufacturing as well as cutting edge technologies. So these are the 5 topics that we shall be discussing, and finally we shall be discussing few practice questions which will help you to understand the type of questions that can be asked in the UPSC examination. So students, let's get started. Students, the title of the first topic is, does India lack a sporting culture outside cricket? Very interesting topic, right? So in this article we try to understand the sporting culture in our country, and this topic is important from the means perspective GS2 as well as GS3, and it can also be asked in essay. Let's say the essay topic can be the impact of sports on society, right? And that's the reason this topic is very important. Let us try to go through a previous year question asked in the year 2014. An athlete participates in Olympics for personal triumph and nation's glory. Victors are showered with cash incentives by various agencies on their return. Discuss the merit of state-sponsored talent hunt and its cultivation as against the rationale of a reward mechanism as encouragement. A very interesting and a good question asked in the UPSC examination. And that's the reason we need to know about such topics. It shouldn't be that this article is related to sports, so you should ignore. No. Such type of questions can be asked in the UPSC examination. That's the reason knowing this topic is very important. What is the context? Now, in this article, as we discussed, we are going to discuss the sporting culture of a country in the light of India's performance at the recent Olympics held in Paris. Right now, the poor performance of a country at the Paris Olympics has triggered a broader conversation about the state of sports in our country. It has made us realize the need for more diversified and robust sporting ecosystem in our country. So in this article, we try to highlight the systemic issues in Indian sports as well as we'll compare that with the international benchmarks and what can be the potential solution to overcome the issues that we have in our system, right? So this is what we are going to discuss in today's topic. So let us go through the performance of India in the recently held Olympics. India won 6 medals, right? Now, if we compare with other nations, 6 number is very small, right? If we compare with developed countries like, let's say, USA or China, who have won medals in 3 digits, India's performance is poor, right? Now, the reason why these countries have won so many medals is because sports is deeply entrenched into their cultures. They see sports as a viable career option. Sports has become a part of their day-to-day lives. The US, for example, they have a history of over 100 years of sporting excellence. They dominate not only in politics, they dominate in each and everything. That's the reason US is the most powerful country in the world. And talking about India, especially in the 21st century, India has realized this gap and India started to invest in the sporting infrastructure. Now, just that in the recent years, we have started to invest in this sporting infrastructure doesn't mean we start winning medals in good numbers. No, it will take some time. We have to be patient, as well as the efforts have to be sustained. It takes time for a sporting culture to develop in a huge country like India, right? Now, let us try to understand the issues in the sports ecosystem. The first one is dominance of cricket. Now, cricket receives a lion's share of attention, resources, as well as infrastructure. And this has led to imbalance in the sports ecosystem, where cricket is developing but the other sports are not developing. The first issue, dominance of cricket. The second is lack of infrastructure and grassroots development. The sporting infrastructure, especially at the grassroots level, is inadequate. Many cities in our country do not have sports complexes, arenas, or training facilities. Now, because of the absence of the sporting infrastructure, the opportunities get reduced or limited, right? So, if you do not have the infrastructure, young athletes or young people cannot see sports as a viable career option. The opportunity gets limited only to academics. So, in India, you see this, right? Many, or like 95% of the Indians see academics as the only hope and only solution. They do not see sports as a viable career option. Why? Because of the absence of infrastructure. Now, for example, programs like Khelo India have been introduced to address this gap, but the reach and impact of Khelo India is still limited. Second issue. The third one is the systemic issues and governance. The sports administration of our country is plagued or affected by inefficiency, lack of professionalism, and poor management. If I talk about hockey, now hockey at one point of time used to help India to get maximum number of medals. Hockey used to dominate our country or dominate the world. But because of the outdated practices and lack of modernization, people stopped watching the sport of hockey. People stopped supporting hockey. Why? Because we are not winning, right? We did not adopt modernization, and that's the reason hockey as a sport got affected. And whenever the facilities are available, they are not accessible at a young age, which means the facility should be available at the formative age. Formative age, which means, so for example, if you see developed countries like United States or China, there the athletes start training at the age of 4, 5, 6. So the facilities have to be available at the formative age. It takes years to gain experience and expertise. You need to go through a lot of hardships, experience to win medal at the highest level. Right? That's the reason those facilities are available, but they are not available at the formative age. They are available at a later stage, but by then, somehow you fail to get the expertise. The next is financial insecurity. Now, for example, if I talk about cricket, even if you do not get selected in the Indian national team, if you play IPL or let's say Ranji, you are financially secure. If you play one season of, let's say, IPL season, you are financially secure. But this is not the same with other sports. Because of financial insecurity, the athletes are not seeing sports as a viable career option, right? Next is lack of sporting culture. Now, unlike USA and China, where sports is a part of everyday life, India lacks this sporting culture in our country, which means the support to sports is lacking in our country. For example, in India, athletes see sport as a way to get government job only. Only to get the government job, athletes focus on sports. Rather than seeing sports as something that is important for personality development or let's say societal well-being, the athletes are looking at sports only as a means to get government job. These are some of the systemic issues in the sporting ecosystem of our country, right? So, what do? First, you have to diversify beyond cricket. Cricket has achieved the highest level, and that's really a good thing. We should be proud of the fact that cricket is dominating in the entire world. For example, BCCI is the richest cricketing body in the entire world. So we should appreciate this fact and we should take pride in this fact. But at the same time, if India wants to be a developed country, then we also need to ensure that the other sports are also developing, which means we need to popularize other sports with the help of media, school programs, and community engagement. Second, invest in infrastructure, especially in the rural areas. Make sure that you're investing in infrastructure. For that, Khelo India should be expanded. And you need to ensure that the talent is nurtured at a very, very young age. You have to identify the talent and then you start nurturing that talent at a very young age, so that a player, once he reaches 14, 15 or 16, he competes at the highest level, represents our country, wins medals for our country. This is how you take the sports to a new high level. Then there should be an emphasis on developing a scientific approach to training and recovery. Now, whenever you are into sports or an athlete, it is very important to focus on the fitness. Now, I have been a sports player, so I understand the importance of training and recovery. So, when you are a player, you are bound to get injured, right? Now, when you get injured, you need to adopt scientific approach, not the traditional approach, scientific approach to training and recovery, so that the player gets recovered as soon as possible and participates or represents India at the highest level. Look at cricket. A player gets injured, within 6 months, the player is recovered. The player is sent to NCA in Bangalore, gets recovered in 6 months and plays for India. The next is reforming sports governance. For example, professionalizing sports management and administration is extremely important to make sports in our country success. Now, what do you mean by professionalizing sports management? Which means that adopting transparent and accountable selection process. The selection process has to be transparent. You have to hire qualified coaches and support staff, and you need to ensure that these sport bodies, for example, we have BCCI for cricket, they are run efficiently, right? Then you also need to bring in expertise from successful sports nations. For example, when it comes to badminton, you need to get coaches from, let's say, Korea, Japan, or let's say China, right? The fourth is providing financial security and career support. It is very important for the government of India to make sure they are providing financial support to our athletes. Financial support in the form of insurance, pensions, and a career transition. So, if financial security is provided, more and more young people will take sports, right? So, instead of looking at sports only as a means to get government job, you need to focus on sports as a viable career option. Sports doesn't mean that you are only a player. Sports includes coaching, sports management, and various other things. For example, you become a trainer, right? You become a counselor. There are many things associated with sports. It's not only that you have to be a player, right? Next, fostering a national sporting culture. You have to develop that national culture where sports is considered very, very important. For that, sports has to be integrated into the education system, right? Sports should be taken as a part of day-to-day activities or day-to-day life. Community engagement where local sports events are celebrated is something that needs to be encouraged. So, this is what we need to do in order to improve the sporting ecosystem of our country, which means we had to adopt a multifaceted approach. Now, Khelo India, the step taken by the government of India, is a step in the right direction. But we need to expand Khelo India program and we need to ensure that the talent is nurtured at a very, very young age, right? We need to tap the rural talent. Then, again, we have to develop a national culture where sports is considered very, very important. So, if we take all these steps, then we can ensure or we can be sure that India will be among the top nations in the entire world. So, students, I hope you understood the entire article, right? Students, the title of the next topic is Rumbles in Rakhine. Now, in this article, we'll understand the instability in the country Myanmar, and this is important from GS paper 2 as well as GS paper 3. In GS paper 2, we have IR, and in IR, we have a subtopic India and its neighborhood. In GS paper 3, we have internal security, and under internal security, we are going to understand the security challenges in the bordering areas. So let's go through a previous year question, though this question is not directly related with this topic, but we are going to discuss a connectivity project in this topic. In context with that, this question is important, right? Now, what is the context? The context is that the Myanmar's Rakhine state, it is one of the states in Myanmar, right? Now, this state is involved in intense conflict. There's an intense conflict between the military junta, that is the army of Myanmar, and the ethnic armed groups like the Arakan army, which means on one hand we have the military junta, which in Myanmar is known as Tatmadaw. It is the military who is running the government in Myanmar. So on one hand we have the military of Myanmar, and on the other hand we have the ethnic armed groups. For example, we have the Arakan army. They are clashing. Now this turmoil, this conflict started in the year 2021, and this led to the exodus of Rohingya. Now Rohingya is a minority in Myanmar. Because of the violence, because of the intense clash between these two entities, the Rohingyas were forced to flee. Now the conflict has become so wide and intense that other players are also involved in the conflict. For example, China. Because of the interest China has in Myanmar, China is involved in the conflict. So this is the Rakhine state of Myanmar. So this is India. This is the West Bengal state of India. This is India's northeast. This is Bangladesh, and this is Myanmar, and this is the Rakhine state of Myanmar, right? Now see, hundreds of thousands of Rohingyas have left their ethnic homeland of Rakhine state, and they fled to India and Bangladesh. Now, what is this conflict? First, ethnic armed conflict. For example, in India, we have the Naxalites, or let's say the Northeast insurgent groups. Similarly, in Myanmar, the army, and on the other hand, the ethnic groups are fighting. Now, the ethnic groups like the Arakan army are fighting for greater autonomy, right? Second, Rohingya persecution. As I told you, because of the intense conflicts, the Rohingyas, which is a minority Muslim in Myanmar, they are forced to flee, right? And as a reason, they have taken refuge in countries like Bangladesh and India. The third is aggressive tactics of the military. Now, the military of Myanmar have adopted airstrikes and artillery attacks, and this has further destabilized the region of Rakhine. Fourth, Chinese influence. Now, the China-Myanmar economic corridor. It is one of the economic initiative of China in Myanmar. Now, as China has invested heavily in this project, China wants to be a player in the overall problem in the region or in the country, which means, for example, Myanmar is a part of China's Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. Now, in order to safeguard China's interest in Myanmar, China is supporting the military of Myanmar. This is how China is involved in the conflict, or China is one of the stakeholders. The next is humanitarian crisis. As I told you, many ethnic groups in Rakhine state of Myanmar are fleeing to countries like Bangladesh and India, and this has led to a refugee crisis in countries like Bangladesh and India, humanitarian crisis. The next is regional instability. Now, because of the intense conflict, the entire region has become problematic, right? Which means that the region has got destabilized. There's no law and order in the region. People are getting killed. So this is about the conflict in Myanmar's Rakhine state, which as a UPSC aspirant is very, very important to know what exactly is the conflict. So the conflict is between the army. Now, one thing that you need to remember is that there is no government in Myanmar. Currently, the army is running the government. In the year 2021, the army they deposed the democratically elected government in Myanmar. There's a military coup, and through military coup, they deposed the government in Myanmar. So today, the army is running the government. And army on one hand, the other ethnic groups, they are fighting. And this has actually destabilized the Rakhine state of Myanmar. So how can India play a role to restore normalcy in Myanmar? First, engagement with all the stakeholders, which means we have to engage with the political parties, we have to engage with the army, we have to engage with countries like China and Bangladesh. Then we also need to engage with the Southeast Asian countries, countries like Thailand, Vietnam, Philippines. So all these Southeast Asian countries, we have to engage with these countries so as to bring normalcy. The second is support for democratic forces. Now we have to support those people who are fighting for pro-democratic reforms, who are fighting for democracy to be restored in Myanmar. So we have to support those political parties who want elections to be held as soon as possible in Myanmar. Second. Third, India should provide humanitarian assistance to those people who are fleeing Myanmar, right? And at the same time, India has to work with international organizations like the United Nations to address the refugee crisis. The fourth one is border security. Given that so many people are fleeing Myanmar and coming to India, we have to ensure that we have to safeguard our border. We have to ensure that the violence in Myanmar, Rakhine state, is not spilling over to our country. This is what India should do. Now, in this context, it is very, very important to understand about this connectivity project known as Kaladan Multimodal Transit Transport Project. You might wonder, why should India take a keen interest in Myanmar? Now, I'll tell you the reason why Myanmar is important for our country. The first one is connectivity. Now, this is the Kaladan Multimodal Project. Now, with the help of a diagram, I'll try to explain you the Kaladan Multimodal Transit Transport Project. Now, this is India, this is Bangladesh, and this is India's northeastern region. This one, the one in yellow color. Now, if India wants to connect to India's northeast, there are two options. One is the Siliguri corridor and the other one is through Bangladesh. But land transport is considered to be very costly. That's the reason we are exploring other option. Or let's say, for example, relation with Bangladesh worsens or spoils. Then what do? We need to have an alternate connectivity. That's the reason what India is doing is, India is developing this Kaladan Multimodal Project, connectivity project, where the Kolkata port of India will be connected to the Sitwe port. Now, where is Sitwe port? It is in Myanmar, Rakhine state of Myanmar. Now, through Sitwe, through this inland waterway which is known as Kaladan. So, Kaladan is the name of the river. This Kaladan or inland waterway connects Sitwe port to Paletwa. Paletwa again is in Myanmar. From Paletwa to this Zorinpui, there is a road connectivity or highway which connects Paletwa and Zorinpui. Now, Zorinpui is located at the India-Myanmar border, and through this Zorinpui, we can connect to India's northeast. Now, this is just 539 kilometers. This is 158 kilometers, 60 kilometers and 50 kilometers. Which means our transportation cost would reduce significantly if this Kaladan multimodal project is a success and is completed. But because of the violence in the Rakhine state, this project is yet to be completed. Now, for India to connect with Southeast Asian countries like we have Thailand, Malaysia, Philippines, right? It is very important that we need to focus on connectivity projects like the Kaladan multimodal project. But if Myanmar is embroiled in conflict, then such connectivity projects will not be completed. It will take years to complete the project. Now, let me also help you to understand Myanmar's impact on India. First one is trade route. As I told you, in order to connect to India's northeast, we have to depend or we have to rely on Myanmar to connect to India's northeastern region, and that's the reason stability and security of Myanmar is very, very important. Second, peace process. Now, stability in India's northeast, right, can be affected because of the violence in Myanmar, which means because of the violence in Myanmar, that violence can also spill over to India's northeast. Now, northeast has a history of armed conflict. For many years, there have been armed conflicts between different ethnic communities in India's northeast. We have normalized the situation, but because of the problem or tension in Myanmar, that can also be escalated into India. This is something that we need to be careful about. Talking about the refugee crisis. Now, if the ethnic groups from Myanmar, they come to India and mix with the India's northeastern ethnic groups, this can further cause ethnic problems or ethnic tensions, which will only worsen our security in India's northeast. Last is foreign policy impact. Now, if the violence escalates or continues, this will complicate India's diplomatic and economic transaction with Myanmar. That's the reason it is very important that we restore normalcy or peace in Myanmar as soon as possible. I hope, students, you understood the article. Students, the title of the next topic is Digital Boost to Revive Solar Power Installation Scheme. In this article, we'll understand about the PM Kusum scheme, and this can be mapped under GS paper 2 as well as GS paper 3, right? Under GS paper 2, we have this government policies and intervention as a subtopic, and GS 3, environmental pollution. Now, previous year question asked in the year 2020 was with reference to solar water pumps. Consider the following statements. So, such type of questions can be asked in the UPSC examination. What is the context? The PM Kusum scheme is in the news. Why? Because of the introduction of a digital platform. Now, this digital platform will help to overcome the land availability challenges with respect to the generation of solar power or solar grid. What is this scheme? This scheme was launched in the year 2019. The full form stands for Pradhan Mantri Kisan Urja Suraksha Evam Uthan Maha Abhiyan. Right? Now, this is going to revolutionize the agriculture sector. How? By integrating the solar energy, which means more and more solar energy will be used in the agriculture sector, thereby reducing the cost of the farmers. Now, first objective is reducing diesel dependency. Now, in order to run the generators, the farmers have to rely on diesel. But now, with the adoption of these solar powered pumps, this will reduce the expenses of the farmers, right? At the same time, the farmers can also sell the excess energy to the grid, through which they can make extra money. Second, enhancing water and energy security. Now, this scheme will lead to the installation of solar pumps to draw the water as well as solar based irrigation projects. Thereby, energy as well as water security will be ensured in the off-grid and underserved areas. Now, off-grid areas are those areas which are not connected with any utilities like electricity, no water. In such areas, this solar pumps and solar generated irrigation projects will be handy, will be helpful. And of course, it will reduce the environmental pollution. Because of diesel, it leads to environment pollution. Now, because of adopting cleaner energy, that is solar energy, environment pollution will be reduced or decreased. Now, there are three components under PM Kusum scheme. One, first component focuses on setting up 10,000 megawatt of decentralized solar power plants, each with the capacity of 2 megawatt. And these plants will be situated on barren or fallow land, which means the land which is not good for agriculture. The power generated will be bought by the local distribution companies, which means you produce the power and sell it to the discoms. Second component aims to install 20 lakh standalone powered agriculture pumps in the off-grid areas. Off-grid areas, those areas which are not connected with any utilities. And last, then these pumps with capacities of 7.5 HP stands for horsepower. And this pumps will replace the diesel pumps. At the same time, central subsidy of 30% will be provided to the farmers. Of all the costs, 30% cost will be borne by the or given by the government. And component C, it supports the solarization of 15 lakh existing grid connected agriculture pumps. This is how the agriculture sector will be revolutionized. I hope you understood the article, right? Students, the title of the next topic is Center launches new artificial intelligence based surveillance systems to manage pests, connect scientists with farmers. Right now, in this article, you try to understand about the National Pest Surveillance System, artificial intelligence and pest control, and the pest control program. Right, you can map this under GS paper 3. A previous question was asked in the year 2011. A genetically engineered form of brinjal known as BT brinjal has been developed. The objective of this is, these are the 4 options. Now, what is the context? The Union government has launched National Pest Surveillance System. We'll understand about this system. This artificial intelligence based system known by the name National Pest Surveillance System is an initiative by the government which is going to help the farmers manage and control the pests more effectively. How? Now, this system will leverage artificial intelligence, which means we'll use artificial intelligence, will analyze the real-time data on pest infestations. So, once the artificial intelligence system analyzes a large volume of data, it will help the farmers. It will help the farmers to connect with the scientists and experts directly. We'll know more about this in the next slide. What are the features of this system? One, connectivity. Now, here farmers can get in touch with the scientists and experts, which means the scientists and the experts will help the farmers to use the pest or pest control more efficiently. One. Second, pest identification and control. All what the farmers have to do is they have to click a photo of the infested crops or insects and send it to the experts. The experts, based on their analysis, they will review it and then they will give advice to the farmers to control the damage. Third, scientific approach. Now, this National Pest Surveillance System will help the farmers to reduce their dependency on pesticide retailers. Usually, whenever the crop gets damaged, the farmers they rely on the retailer. Now, retailer, in order to maximize the profit, they will woo the farmers and convince them to buy more number of pesticides or spray large volume of pesticide. Right? Now, this will reduce the dependence. Fourth, efficient use of pesticide. Now, the experts will help the farmers to understand the correct quantity of pesticides, which means which pesticide to use, at what time to use, so that the farmers won't overuse the pesticide, and this will provide safety and security to the crops and the soil, which means the nutritive value of the crops and the soil will be retained. Then this is going to help around 14 crore farmers across our country in terms of pest management, increasing agriculture productivity and safeguarding the environment. Why? Because the more pesticide you use, the soil will get contaminated, and if the soil is getting contaminated, the groundwater gets contaminated. Here, by using this artificial intelligence, we reduce the use of pesticide, thus causing less damage to the environment. And there is no additional funding required. This will be implemented through the state outreach programs, right? Now, these are some of the schemes focus on pest control and integrated pest management. For example, the first one is National Integrated Pest Management, which promotes sustainable pest management practices that minimizes the use of pesticides and encourage the use of biological control methods. The second one is National Food Security Mission. The purpose is to increase the production of rice, wheat, pulses and other cereals. How? Through improved pest management and agriculture practices. Third one is the Parampagat Krishi Vikas Yojana. Now, this scheme promotes organic farming through cluster-based development and encourages the use of natural and biological pest control methods. These are some of the schemes focused on the pest control and pest management. So, you should know about this National Pest Surveillance System. I hope you understood the article. Students, the title of the next topic is India will offer end-to-end chip solutions to the world. Right? Now, in this article, you'll understand about the semiconductor chips and Industry 4.0. This is important from the prelims as well as the mains perspective, GS paper 2 and GS paper 3. Previous question asked in the year 2020, the emergence of fourth industrial revolution has initiated e-governance as an integral part of government. Discuss. What is the context? The context is that on the eve of Independence Day, the Prime Minister of India announced that India will offer end-to-end semiconductor solution to the world. Through this, India will be a global leader or global player in the semiconductor industry or the cutting edge technologies. And this we can do by leveraging our youth who are skilled. For that, the Government of India has launched 76,000 crore semiconductor chip incentive scheme in 2021. Now, through this, subsidies are offered to plants or the semiconductor plants. Prime Minister expressed that through this, our country will herald and be a part of Industry 4.0. First, we'll understand what is semiconductor chip and then we'll understand what is Industry 4.0. First is semiconductor chip. It is simply referred to as chip. It is nothing but it is a small piece of semiconductor material. For example, the most common semiconductor material is silicon that contains an integrated circuit IC. Now, the chips, these semiconductor chips are essential in most of the electronic devices like computers, smartphones and other gadgets, which means semiconductor chips are basic ingredient. Now, these semiconductor chips contain integrated circuit. This integrated circuit, there are a set of electronic circuits on a small flat piece. So, this is the integrated circuit. Now, these circuits, they perform variety of functions like processing, memory storage or controlling electronic devices. So, every mobile that you use has this chip and integrated circuit. The most commonly used semiconductor is silicon. Now, such type of question can be asked in the UPSC examination. Why it is common? Because it is found in abundance, it is cost effective. Now, some chips are also made from other semiconductor materials, for example, gallium arsenide. Now, this semiconductor material is known for its high speed and high frequency applications. This is semiconductor chips. And what is Industry 4.0? This is the fourth industrial revolution, which means we had three industrial revolution. This is the fourth industrial revolution. Now, this fourth industrial revolution refers to the transformation of the traditional manufacturing and industrial practices to modern smart technology like the artificial intelligence, machine learning, etc. Which means it is the advance to the modern smart technology. Now, this revolution builds on the advances of three previous industrial revolutions. For example, the first industrial revolution signified mechanization, water power, steam power, right? The second, mass production assembly line and electricity, that is manufacturing. The third, computer and automation, right? And the fourth one is the cyber physical system, modern smart technology. So, these are the four industrial revolutions. So, you should know what each industrial revolution, right? So, it's also mentioned it over here. So, this is mechanization, electricity and information technology, IT. This is third industrial revolution. And fourth is a fusion of physical, digital and biological worlds. I hope you understood the article. Students, it's now time to discuss few questions so that you understand if you have understood all the 5 topics. First question, the Kaladan Multimodal Transport Project is aimed at improving connectivity between one of the easiest questions, right? So, the correct answer is India and Myanmar. The second one, with the present state of development, artificial intelligence has applications in which of the following, right? Analyzing pest infestations in agriculture, yes. Detecting frauds in the financial sector. Disease diagnosis, improving athletes' performance, yes. Artificial intelligence can be used in everything. That's the power of AI, right? So, option D is the correct answer. Question number 3, this is about the PM Kusum scheme. The objective being reducing dependency on diesel for irrigation by promoting solar powered pumps, yes. Enhancing water and energy security through solar pumps and community irrigation projects, yes. Increasing the use of diesel powered irrigation systems to boost agriculture, no. This is incorrect. It does not promote the use of diesel, right? It disintensifies the use of diesel. Fourth, decreasing environmental pollution, yes, which means 1, 2 and 4 has to be the correct answer. The next following statements about semiconductor chips. Now, semiconductor chips are primarily made from silicon, yes, but other materials like gallium arsenide are used for specific high-speed, yes, correct. Integrated circuits on semiconductor chips are limited to only, no, they are not only limited to memory storage. They can also be used for processing in different functions. Incorrect. Semiconductor chips are essential components in a broad range of electronic devices, including computers and smartphones. Yes, correct. Which means 1 and 3, option C is the correct answer for question number 4. Question number 5th, Industry 4.0 means it is the third industrial, no, it is the 4th industrial revolution. Incorrect. It marks the transformation of traditional manufacturing through the integration of modern smart technology, building on previous 3 industrial revolutions. Yes, this one is correct. No need to read the next 2 options as well. But again, to be on the safe side, always have this habit of reading all the 4 options, right? You should be confident, but you should not be overconfident. Yes. Now let's discuss a means practice question. Discuss the challenges faced by India in developing robust sporting culture beyond cricket. Underline the keywords. Suggest measures that can be taken to address the challenges and improve the overall sports ecosystem. Now, this is my hunch guess that such type of question can be asked in the UPSC examination. Why? Because sports, many people are taking interest in sports. Despite so, we are not winning medals, the required number of medals or the medals that we should win in the major tournaments, right? That's the reason somewhere I feel that such question can be expected in the UPSC examination. So, in the introduction, you have to mention that how the sporting culture of our country has not yet developed. We are still focused more and more on cricket. We are not looking beyond cricket. That's the reason it is very important that we understand the systemic issues in the sporting ecosystem and address the solution. Then, in the body, you can mention the challenges. For example, we are focused much on cricket, right? We are not moving beyond cricket. Even the IPL players are focused more than the national players of different sports. Lack of infrastructure, especially in the rural areas, there are no infrastructure, thus limiting opportunities. Systemic issues, governance inefficiency, there is no transparency in selection process and poor administration. Financial insecurity, the players or the athletes have financial insecurity. That's the reason they do not see sports as career option, but they see sports as a means to get government job. Cultural attitudes. Now, like as I told you, majority, like 90% population of our country do not see sports as a career option. They see sports only as an entertainment factor. They do not see as a career. Then measures, here to diversify, focus has to be on other sports as well. The media has to cover other sports, focus on the heroes of other sports. Infrastructure development, Hello India program should be expanded, and the local talent should be nurtured at a very young age. Reforming governance, focus has to be given on the professional management. The body should run effectively. Financial security in form of pensions, insurance, career transition should be given. At the same time, we have to move and we have to develop a national culture wherein sports is considered to be a part of day-to-day activities, and sports should also be seen as something that should help in your personality development. This is what you can sum up in the conclusion, which means you need a multifaceted approach to develop a proper sporting ecosystem so that we compete among the best in the major tournaments. So students, I hope you understood all the questions and understood how to write means-based question and answer, right? So again, as I told you, make sure that you are regular with respect to DNA analysis. Read the paper, then refer to the video, to ensure that you have understood the topic neatly and cleanly, right? So again, students, if you want us to continue with the DNA, then please do like, share and support Narayana IAS. Thank you so much.